There's a new article in Popular Science that's going to have you pretty concerned about what kind of water you're drinking. I was literally just talking about this the other day with a patient, and he was asking me what kind of filters I use and what kind of water I drink. And I basically summed it up to him like this: I don't ever drink any water that's not filtered. And I'm going to explain to you why here. Something in the water is feminizing male fish. Are we next? Now, one of the reasons I think this "are we next" conversation is incredibly important because there's also reports basically stating that male testosterone levels are lower than they've ever been, like in recorded history. When you look at old males, young males, everybody in between, the testosterone levels are incredibly, incredibly low. Let's jump into this. It's one thing to worry about pollutants in our freshwater supply. It's another to find out that all across the country, male fish swimming in some of the water are becoming intersexed. Their male sex organs producing immature female eggs. Although the condition occurs naturally in some species, it shouldn't happen in the black bass. But a new study shows that it is, and in numbers far greater than we ever suspected. The phenomenon raises serious questions about the pollution levels in our rivers that could threaten several species. What's so funny? We have all these different environmental protection agencies and everything. However, they allow so many of these companies, despite the millions and millions of dollars it costs to keep them around, they let all these different companies basically spew chemicals into our water system, and they don't care. They actually turn a blind eye. I mean, when you look at these big companies like Bayer Pharmaceutical with Monsanto dropping all these different pesticides and chemicals on crops which go into the groundwater and end up in our water supply, they turn a blind eye to it. They just basically say, no, it's safe in low levels. Okay, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. And here's the thing too, is that just looking at the bottom of this paragraph right here, now we need to figure out why this is happening. Well, this is interesting because back when I was taking board prep, when I was looking to take my national boards in school, there was an education company that comes in, and one of the guys that was teaching it, he basically went on to tell us how this is a big problem. I mean, this is like many years ago. I'm talking like 10, 15 years ago when I heard this for the very first time. And it's funny that I'm seeing it now today when I heard about it 15 years ago, and we're talking about it as if it's new information. Because what they were finding a long time ago is that they were finding like the male turtle starting to develop female genitalia. The discovery raises some tough questions. Scientists don't know whether the growing number of feminized fish could hinder reproduction enough to disturb the rest of the ecosystem or even drive bass into extinction. Even scarier, the culprit is still unknown. How is it still unknown? And by the way, like, I'm not that concerned about the bass, and it's not because I don't care about bass. It's just because I'm more into human health and I'm more concerned about how it's actually affecting you. So somebody needs to care about the bass. I'm just more concerned about you and anybody, all the humans watching this. Okay. Well, the prime suspect is our toilets. Spot on. I heard this 15 years ago too. Previous research indicates the wastewater treatment plants flush endocrine disruptive compounds, including pharmaceuticals, which is a big one, huge problem. So many people are taking pharmaceuticals. It's just coming right out through their urine and going into the water system. Pesticides and hormones into the rivers. Even minuscule amounts of endocrine disrupting compounds can trigger powerful hormonal shifts that deform the male fish's reproductive organs. Jeez, I mean, this is scary stuff because what is this doing? The idea that this is happening to fish but is not happening to humans is crazy, okay? And I'm not saying that like males are developing female eggs, but I'm saying that when you're taking all these different chemicals coming from the water system, they certainly are impacting you in some way. During a 7-year study, for instance, scientists added parts per million amounts, the levels emitted by treatment plants, of the synthetic estrogen used in birth control pills to a closed lake. The resulting sex changes collapsed the entire fish population. Bingo. This is one of the major problems, birth control. So many women are on birth control. Basically, um, uh, dumping enormous amounts of synthetic estrogen into the water system. And it's scary, scary stuff. So, anybody who ever tells me that they're not drinking filtered water, I would highly recommend you start drinking filtered water, because the amount of pharmaceuticals and estrogen and pesticides and every other stinking thing, fluoride and chlorine, that's all in this water is dangerous. I don't want to hear anything about how it's safe because it's in low levels. That's ignorant, okay? Because you just saw what happened. I mean, the levels emitted by the treatment plants, basically, of the synthetic estrogen used in birth control pills to the closed lake resulted in a collapse of the fish population. Okay, so we hear all the time the parts per million that's allowed. Well, it's still affecting you in some way. So I definitely recommend um, going in and using a good water filter. I was telling my patient the other day, in my home, I have like just a tap water system in order to filter my water, and it's by a company called Kinetico. They do a great job with it. It's like a 5-stage filtration system. I don't do it throughout the entire house because it's not necessary, but I do it just for the drinking water, the water that we might boil something in or cook with. And then if you don't want to put a full water system in your house, because this was the other argument, is the patient said, well, I'm not in like a house that I'm going to be in for a long time, so I don't want to spend that kind of money. I recommended to him putting in a Berkey water system. And so what I'll do is I'll put some resources for the Berkey system, because that's a much more doable system for most people. I'll put that in the description below. But the Berkey system is a great over-the-counter. You just basically set the system on the counter. You fill it with water. Gravity runs it through some different filters, but it takes a lot of stuff out, and it's definitely more reasonable in the way of pricing. So I definitely would recommend that if you're somebody who's not going to be in a house forever. Like I said, I put in a better system in my house just because I knew I'd be here for a long time, and we go through enormous amounts of water. There's 6 of us in my house, so we go through a lot of water, a lot of drinking water, and it was the better route for us. But make sure that you are filtering your water to get all these chemicals out, because no doubt if it's affecting the fish, it's affecting you. And it just so happens to be that literally after reading an article about how low testosterone is in males today, I came across this article, and it is 100% correlated in some way.